Okay, I will begin.
Please go right
I
ahead,
will
Charity.
begin.
Yes, please.
All right. Thank you so much, Sam. I
Welcome.
was privileged yesterday when you contacted me, uh, asking me if with the rest of the members on the group. And I must say it's always an honor, Samuel, to talk to you, to interact with you, and also to associate with you and the rest of the from the IRF forums, both the public speaking forum and the leaders forum. Uh, my name is Charity Byarugaba, and currently I work at Chambogo University, where I work in the project management office, and that is part of the international office at Chambogo University. So today I'm going to be talking about an interesting topic, I guess, and this is confronting your fears and how we can keep track of our pursuits amidst challenging circumstances. It is important to note that none of us is immune to fear. None of us is immune to feeling afraid. It doesn't matter how big you are, how young you are, or how maybe exposed you are. At any one moment in time, there is always that feeling of feeling afraid, feeling scared, and feeling, afraid of taking an action or doing something. So all this that I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to encompass it in broad terms. So all my listeners will be seeing evidences of lack of faith and the effects of the lack of faith, which actually fear is one of them that I'm going to be addressing today. So let's start with this. In this particular context, I will look at faith as an ability for one to take action even in the presence of fear. Now, this means that you may not be able to control the fact that you feel afraid, but you are actually, you can control how you respond to that feeling. Because I mentioned in the beginning that we are all, candidates, good candidates to fear, but how you respond to it is what makes a difference at the end of the day. And in this perspective of pursuits and visions and goals and dreams, I don't think that you could be able to feel afraid when you have nothing to do and you have goal. So all this begins with us having a goal that we want to achieve. You have a dream that you want to achieve, and because there is something that you anticipate or that you expect to get at the end of the day or in the middle of the road, you are faced with this monster called fear. If someone has no dream, they will seldom have, or experience fears such as fear of the unknown, fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of doing something new, and in fear of being different in, where everyone else is doing the same thing at the end of the day. Why? Because there is no anticipation. Because there is no anticipation, you have no results to expect in return. I'm going to share a story, just a brief story to emphasize what I'm talking about. Someone was sharing it the other day in the meeting that I attended. This is a story of an Arab chief, and it says that there was a spy who was captured and later on sentenced to death by a general in the Persian army. Now, this had a strength, so he would give the people who have been condemned, the prisoners who have been condemned, a choice of either firing squad or the big black dog. So you either choose a firing squad or the latter. So when the moment is coming closer for someone to be executed, then the Persian would ask a question to this prisoner. And the question was, what will it be? Is it a firing squad or is it a big black door? Now, this particular spy in question hesitated for a long time. because it was a difficult decision for him to make. And at the end of the day, he says, I choose firing squad. And moments later, shots rang out, confirming that he had been executed. The general turned to his aide and he was like, they always prefer the known way to the unknown. It is characteristic of people to be afraid of the undefined. Yet we give them a choice. So the aide was also concerned. He had no idea what lies beyond the big black door. So he asked the general, could you please tell me what lies behind the big black door? And the general, at the amazement of the aide, he was like, freedom. I have only seen a brave few take that option. And when I heard that story, I'm like, wow, this is exactly what happens to most of us in many circumstances, because we are afraid of taking the option that is less known to us. We are afraid of launching into something that is so uncertain. We are afraid of, going into a place which has been unexplored before. And in most cases, we will have all these fears, from personal, career fears, family, financial or economy fears, relationship fears. Now that we are into this challenge of the pandemic, there are lots of stories moving around whether the economy will be able to pick up after the repercussions of the COVID-19. That many businesses will struggle, many companies will struggle, many individuals will struggle. A lot of a lot of jobs are likely to be evidence as we go through all this and many others, that other consequences that may come along the way. So allow me to expound. I will talk about three things that actually come out of fear. When we feel afraid, what exactly happens? It is important to note that one of the best licenses to failure is actually fear. I am a reader of the Bible, and I love to read it a number of times, but I see so many stories where, for example, in the book of Mark, we see the disciples of Jesus after they have been chosen, and Jesus told them, follow me. And they left everything else that they were doing, and they decided to follow him without questioning. So we see him performing different miracles, from healing the sick, straightening the hands of the people who are paralyzed, healing leprosy, casting away. But guess what? I was reading this chapter and I was amazed. When you look into chapter 4 of the book of Mark, when they were faced with a storm on the sea, the disciples are damn afraid. They are, I don't know, their heart is out. They don't know what to do. They are confused till they go and wake him up. They're like, you know what, Jesus, you don't care that we are drowning? They are in a death experience. But when you look at his response to them, when he rose and commanded the storm to come down, he turns to them and says, why are you afraid? Up to now, you do not have faith? Because one would literally that by all the different miracles, the different supernatural happenings they had evidenced, they wouldn't be afraid. And so they would have faith in the man that was with them in the boat. But guess what? That is fear, because it even forgets about the previous victories that one has had. You tend to forget that you have overcome particular hurdles at the end of, and you are sunk into the present circumstance, the overwhelming uncertainty that is surrounding you. Number 2 is that fear breeds selfishness. In the same book, and even when you look into the book of Exodus, you see You look at, for example, when I go back to the example that I've just given, you look at those guys, they are asking Jesus, Master, don't you care that we are drowning? Don't you care that we are going to drown? But question is, Jesus is with them in the same boat. I think all they are afraid of is about themselves, losing their lives. So they tend to become selfish. One personal example that I can give concerning that, years ago, I organized a charity camp, an outreach to one of the hardest to reach areas in the country, far deep in Kanu, for those of you who are familiar with the place. And it was such a long journey. And in the middle of the journey, when we had maybe, let's say 30 kilometers to the final destination, in the middle of nowhere, our car hits up and it cannot brake because the brakes are all worn out. Meanwhile, we are on a steep slope down the hill, and the driver spoke to me because I was seated right next to him, and he says, Madam, I cannot brake. And I'm thinking he's joking. He says, Madam, I've failed to brake. And the car went down the hill uncontrollably. And all of a sudden, boom, I think that was the hand of God. All of a sudden, the car stopped by itself. It was all smoking. Everyone in the car was running out for their lives. And we couldn't proceed after that point. But thank God that we were near a school, so we could see in a range of about 500 meters, we could see a school ahead. So we had to go to the school, camp there, and it took us the whole night. And the following day, only up to 2 p.m., we managed to get another truck to move us from that point where we were to the final destination. But this is what happens in between. Two young girls that we went with on the camp, they were so afraid. They told me, Madam Charity, we think we cannot proceed. We please allow us to go back with the driver. At the end of the day, the driver of the coaster we had could also not proceed. So they had to call a mechanic to, almost. But these young girls are so scared and letting go because we are having a medical camp. We've been planning this for a long time. Resources are in place. But because a challenge has come in the middle of the way, I mean, we think about ourselves at the end of the day and we lose focus from the bigger picture. So it's very, very unfortunate. But thank God at the end of the day that we managed to go through that and we proceeded to the final destination. And maybe to put an emphasis on that, so maybe to put an emphasis on that, sorry about that, at the end of the day, we will lose focus. Fear will make us lose focus. Like when we read the Israelites, when they were leaving Egypt, every hurdle they met, when they reached the Red Sea, they were complaining, they were, crying out, did you bring us here to die? Weren't there graves in Egypt? But on a promise, because God was taking them to the promised land. But because of the challenges that they encountered along the way, they actually lost focus and started looking at themselves and, what might befall them, which was not certain to them at that particular time. I'm yet to conclude on the likely effects, what happened to us when we get fear. We all react differently, but one of the key things I've observed as an individual and also other people surrounding me at that place, in the church, in different circles, is that when someone gets afraid, they tend to isolate themselves. Now, forget about the coronavirus quarantine and all the, the isolation that we are in. But when fear grips an individual, what happens? They slide into panic mode. What happens? They pull back, they limit contact. You realize someone who was personable, someone who was sociable, someone who was so friendly, they gradually pull away. They sink into loneliness, they sink into depression, and before you know it, they could even be declared dead. Why? Something didn't work out. Why? They are not sure. They have a huge business loss. They are not sure. They just lost an important relationship. They are so afraid they lost someone so dear to them in their lives. And the fear of going into the uncertain future is very inevitable. So that that aside, allow me right now to share with you about 4 questions that we ask ourselves if we are to overcome this fear and be able to, move forward in faith and also pursue our goals and dreams successfully. Because each and every one of us, we have goals, we have purpose in life, we have a calling, we have destinies, but we want to achieve, but they are not so clear. So the question is, how do I move forward in faith? How do I confront my fears? How do I work around to make sure that I do not succumb to these fears, to make sure I do not allow these fears to stand my way or to hinder my destiny? I will borrow a few approaches or principles from the project life cycle phases, mainly from the Project Management Institute. Not all of them, but just a few to emphasize the points that I'm going to be sharing with us. It's evident, but that by the time someone is contemplating a risk, they really have an idea, they have a goal that they want to achieve. But because certain things are not clear, then they are afraid to take action. So it's important that you take an informed risk. And below, I'll put emphasis on the following. Number one, we need to ask ourselves a question. What is the need? What is the problem? And what am I trying to solve at the end of the day? Because if I have this big dream, I want to be a great public speaker. Let me give that example. I want to be a great public speaker, but I'm afraid to step out. I'm afraid to launch into the whole idea. The sight of the people in front of me just gives me goosebumps. It's ideal, it's important for you to acknowledge that you are actually afraid, because it's a feeling. It comes and it goes, depending on how you respond to it. So it would be prudent for you to appreciate the problem that you are trying to solve and get the facts right. Try to do some investigation. Maybe you have friends who are great at public speaking. Currently, there's a lot of materials on public speaking, for example. I'm just giving that an example. If it was a business, still I would say that there are so many business ideas. There is a lot of information surrounding us on Google and online, among us, among friends and all that. But we need to get the facts right. Before you launch into something, get the facts right. In project management, we call that a baseline study. And any project that will not have a baseline study, chances of it failing along the way are high, because then you do not know what you're trying to solve. You don't know the underlying situation, the impact. You will not be able to assess the impact of the situation. So get the facts right, assess the situation. If your risk will count, then you need to get some of the facts right. There is no risk with no faith. And God will definitely give you a high five if you take an informed risk, if you take risk with which is backed up by information. Because even God does not want us to take ignorant risks, by the way, because he says in Proverbs 13:16 that every prudent man should act out of knowledge, but a fool exposes his folly. So this is it. This is it. Do your research. Get the facts right. Establish the problem, what the problem is. Know the opportunities that are lying therein, and set your strategies right. Secondly, this is a question that was asked to me about 7 years ago or 8 when I had just started working in my first job. And the question was, why do you do what you do? For me, at the sound of it, I felt like this was not a valid question. Why do I do what I do? I mean, you employed me and I'm working. I am delivering. I don't think I need to answer this question. I don't think it's a valid question. I am supposed to do this. All these thoughts were screaming through my head. But you know what? This is not the case. The point is, what is at stake if you do not take action? What might go wrong if you do not move forward? In other words, what is the source of your motivation? Okay? Why are you doing what you do? So, for me, that question changed my life. And I think whenever we are gripped with fear, if we come back and we are able to answer this question, then we will have a very good reason for us to proceed irrespective of how we feel or of the presence of fear, because this spells purpose, the purpose why we live and the purpose why we do what we do. So lastly, the other question that I think is important for us to answer if we have to confront our fears is, how much will it cost? Okay, back to the project management life cycle. You go to initiation process, you go to preparation and planning process, and that is the stage whereby normally one is able to assess the cost of the project that they are about to take, the cost of the endeavor that they are about to take. If it is public speaking, you want to be this great communicator. What is it? What do you have to part away with in terms of time, in terms of money, in terms of emotional energy, in terms of commitment? What do you need to make this happen? What do I need to make this happen? Evaluate the cost of your proposed strategies. And I remember one day Jesus told his disciples that they needed to count the cost before risking to follow him. And he illustrated it so perfectly, and I love it, in Luke 14:28, when he says, suppose one of you wants to build a tower. Will he not first sit down and estimate the cost to see if he has money to complete it? Wow, what a powerful way to illustrate the fact that we need to evaluate and know the cost of the endeavor, of the goal, of the dream that we want to pursue before we actually dive into doing it. Because that's the mistake that many of us make. You're not so sure of what exactly you need. And if someone comes up and say, hey, how much do you need to have your project complete? And you're like, I'm doing it by faith. I'm doing everything. It's a big goal. It's a big dream, but it is not quantified. So in other words, it's even very hard to attract people to help you. It's very hard to attract resources because anyway, they do not know how to help you. They do not know where the gap is. They do not know the available opportunities where they could volunteer their skills, where they could volunteer their support, or even, dig into their pockets and be able to support your pursuit or your goal or your endeavor. So the moment you know how much it will cost, then boom, you're good to go. Go ahead, make a plan, commit your plans before the Lord, because now you're doing it with knowledge. Because the Bible says that my people perish because of ignorance. So go ahead, commit your plans to the Lord. Be exact to him and tell him, Lord, this is what I need to happen. You know, I need you to guide me into this. I need you to provide for this. Then you are a knowledgeable person. You are an informed person. You are taking an informed risk at the end of the day. And I want to believe that nothing shall be able to stand in your way, because you will have minimized the greatest part of the challenge, which is fear. The greatest part, which is fearing to take a risk, because you are taking an informed risk. God bless you. I hope now we can go into the discussions. Just want to emphasize that at the end of the day, I mean, someone can never be, you can never be afraid of doing nothing about nothing. So it all starts with you having a pursuit, having a goal, and having a dream that you want to achieve, that you will be able to walk the journey of faith.
Great. Thank you very much, Charity, for an amazing, amazing presentation about confronting your fears and keeping track of your pursuit amidst challenging circumstances. I think this is quite amazing. So right now, we would like to open up for discussion for the next about 10 minutes only. And then after that, we will be closing the session. But when you said that no one is immune to fear, I was wondering, so why do some people appear to be fearless?
You want to answer now?
Oh yes, it's fine, just crispy.
Hello?
Yes, please.
Yes. Why do some people look to be fearless? I think
Yes.
it is not everyone of us to look afraid. I mean, I've taken particular endeavors, really daring ventures. They may not be, but there are some ventures I've undertaken and I felt, oh my God, that was. But I want to tell you that I was afraid, but not the people around me that actually got to know that I was afraid, because I didn't want to look vulnerable to them, you know. So your ability to understand that, yes, I'm afraid, but this is very important for me to pursue. This is very important for me to achieve. And you take the courage to take action in the presence of fear. Yes, people will look at you, say, he is bold, she is bold. But if someone was to sit down with those people personally, one-on-one, and they were genuine with their feelings, they were genuine with the hurdles they've had to overcome, at one moment, someone is afraid. You see, even making maybe a presentation like this, somehow you're feeling like, oh my God, how will it come out? You know, will it make any sense? Do I even need to say this? Do I even need to talk about this? All those are silent fears, which we try to put aside because you don't want to look vulnerable at the end of the day. And there are people around you, there are people who believe in you. The moment you show any signs that you are afraid, you're also afraid that you might lose them, because they are looking at you, you're their star, you're their role model. So some of these things go unsaid. They go unsaid, they go unnoticed, but for me, that's the point of my departure.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes,
I
Brenda.
also want to share personally, fear is something I deal with a lot. And yet most of my friends think I am the most, daring person and all that. But I've learned just to live with those fears, get comfortable a little bit with them. But I've also, one of the quotes that inspires me is Maya Angelou, who said, I've dared to do many things, sometimes trembling, but daring still. So for me, the big goals sort of push me to overcome my fears. So sometimes I'm organizing big things,
Yeah.
My heart is a wreck, but you know, I just do what I need to do one step at a time. And when they turn out great, like, okay, it was worth it. So I just ignore the fear and do what I have to do anyway. So thanks, Charity, for sharing. It works to have a bigger goal. Your goal, I think, should be bigger than the fear. When you compare the cost of not doing what you're supposed to do with the cost of the fear,
Wow.
the goal should pull you.
Yeah.
Great, powerful. That brings in focus two words: the price versus the prize. Prize as in the gift, and then price as in the cost.
Yeah.
I think what is coming through right now is
Yeah.
that one of the ways how we can be able to meet the cost is to focus on the gift that we are going to be given once the cost is met. In other words, put the focus on the prize that lies ahead. Then you can be able to meet the to pay the price. Right now, as you were sharing, Brenda and Charity, I remembered a saying from Mark Twain, who said that there are two types of speakers. One, those who feel nervous when they stand up to speak, and two, those who pretend that they don't feel nervous whenever they stand up to speak. So in other words, no one is indeed immune to fear. So you have to feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah.
Do it afraid. Yes, the floor is open to whoever would like to add something.
I think maybe if I'm to share also specifically to the fear topic being discussed, one of the things that helps me kind of to overcome it is asking myself, what's the worst that can happen? Okay. But then you get these butterflies inside of you. Trust me, most of the time they usually come. But then I encourage myself, I ask myself, okay, what's the worst that can happen? Are they going to beat me? No. Are they going to do this? No. So I just pick up myself and deliver what I have to deliver on. And then I use it as an opportunity. If this hasn't gone right, yes, what is the learning out of all this? What do I have to learn to make better the next time I stand up before an audience? Or so I focus on the outcome as opposed to the deterring factors for me to deliver on something. I remember recently, last week, I think, we had an AGM at work for our circle. We had it online. It was scheduled for a physical meeting, but it was online. So I had to present financials on a Zoom call. And in between the presentation, things got messy. My network disappeared and everything. And I got into panic mode. I started thinking, remember, my computer is just in front of me. And people kept texting me, oh, Flavia, you know what? You are on point, just continue. Those who don't know you, they can't even notice that you're actually off course. So just get the network up and continue with your presentation. And I picked up myself and continued, and the meeting went on successfully. But had I got drained in the fact that, you know what, these hiccups have come up and all this, let me just pause and keep in my morning zone, maybe I wouldn't have delivered what I had to deliver on. So it's more of, okay, the situation is here, I have to proceed and do what I have to do, but then after evaluate, what are the learnings that I'm getting out of this to make better the next time I'm in front of something to do it. And yes, it makes better with time, with practice, as opposed to killing yourself in this zone of, you know what, I'm doomed, I can't do this, I can't do this. It doesn't help anyway, but we can only get better by able to do.
Yeah.
Wow, great. Thank you very much, Flavia. Indeed, asking ourselves what's the worst that can happen. I think fear can even be a push for our success. When you fear nothing, there is a point that Charity brought in when she said people that have no dreams have nothing they fear, since there is no anticipation. So fear can actually be a motivation for success. I remember a story of a certain king. This was a story in one of our school textbooks, that this king had a very beautiful girl, a very beautiful daughter, and she was coming of age. It was about a time when she was supposed to be getting married. And just like, you know, those stories in those books, that the king put out an announcement that whoever wants to be a suitor, please just come. Whoever wants to take the wife, take the daughter for a wife. And because she was very beautiful, looking awesome, adorable, curvaceous, think about everything that many men would look for in a lady, the people all came up. There were many of them in hundreds. So they lined up And the gentleman said, now my daughter is here, you have come. What we are going to do is that I will give you just one test, and whoever passes it will take the girl. And he just showed them a swimming pool nearby, very big. He said, whoever swims across this swimming pool to the very other end will actually get my daughter for a wife. The only thing you need to know is that there are serious hungry crocodiles in the swimming pool. And the gentleman had put there big plastic crocodiles. When he said that, more than 90% of the men just walked away quickly. Those who remained, while they were still contemplating, they saw one young man already in the swimming pool, swimming. He swam so quickly, so fast across the swimming pool. And after he had gone through, they were all jubilating and celebrating and clapping and saying, here is the most, the bravest kind of gentleman in this compound. And he came running and he asked, he said, please, before you talk about anything, tell me who pushed me? Who pushed me? Who pushed me? Somebody had actually pushed him. Sometimes the fear is what we need as a push for success. The floor continues to be open.
Yes.
Okay. Sam, I think that also means sometimes we need people to push us. So do we have those people in our circles when the fear is overcoming? Yeah. Like recently when I hosted a workshop, it's actually one of my mentors who said, Brenda, yeah, you have to do it. And I did it and it was good. So we need the pushers.
Congratulations, Brenda. When we say the people who push us, who are these kinds of people? Are we talking about people like mentors? Next. Coaches?
Yeah, I think some I can add on to that.
Yes.
We're talking about the mentors, we're talking about the coaches, we are talking about people who believe in us. Because ideally, someone who does not believe in you, who does not believe in your dreams, who does not believe in your goals, the best they will do is to pull you back. Because you will get all this negative feedback all the time. You think you can also do that? No one has ever done it in your family. So they try to Hello?
Yes,
they try to measure success depending on what they know, on what they are used to, on what is so comfortable for them, what is possible for them. Now, their faith is not equivalent to your faith. So in any way, those are not the right people to hang around. Those are not the right people to share your dreams with. If I share with you my dream and the first thing I get is, you think that's possible? Do you have money to achieve that? Do you think you're well to do that? Then for me, those are indicators that I'm with the wrong company. I'm with the wrong people. But we all know those people who believe in us, and they may not even be family members, These are people we work with, people we've met at social circles that we work with, and there is that one person, those two people that really have faith in you, that keep pushing you. And I must say, Sam, you're one of them, because for me in my life, because every time you come to me, I'm thinking, I was not thinking about that. I don't think I should be able to do that. But you remember my response when you said, I think we should arrange one of these days on a group. Actually, I'm like, oh, really? Let's do it. But I remember at first I was like, am I supposed to even do this? Am I the right person to be hosted to discuss anything? Those are the first questions that came to me. But when someone, has faith in you and they believe you can do it, chances are very high that you will want to prove to them, or not to disappoint them, or to, to encourage them that you actually can do it. Yet in the actual sense, you're helping yourself and you're moving forward to achieve dreams.
Great. Thank you.
I totally agree.
June Manji.
Hear me? Yes, I'm glad to be part of this discussion today for the very first time. I think Corona has brought people together from far and wide. So I just wanted to add on what Charity has just said about the voices that are coming from outside. But we also have to consider the voices that comes from inside that bring in fear. And this is also brought about by the company that we keep what we hear, what we listen, what do we conceptualize. By and large, the most important thing is, do you believe that you can do it despite being afraid? And yes, you are afraid. Do it afraid anyway, you know? So just as a top up on what she had said, which is very true, our surroundings really matter, our internal environment. It is very important to keep both environments healthy. That I would add.
Great, thank you very much, Juni Mwanji in Kenya. We are glad to have you online. Indeed, the internal dialogue, I often call this the internal dialogue. What is going on in our mind when we are going through these different challenges? They say that if you do not have the enemy within, the enemy without will never defeat you. So quite often, the reason why we are defeated by the enemy from the outside is because we already had an enemy on the inside, and we are the very enemy, our very number one enemy. So what is going on in the inside? I think that's a huge thing. Probably it ties in with what Charity talked about, the issue of why do you do what you do? What is at stake if you don't take action? What's your source of motivation? If you focus on the big reason, on the big why, definitely you will be melting down the enemy within, and the enemy without will not have a strong hold on you, really. Yes, friends, we are almost ending this this session, and so if there are a few more comments, questions, or additions, kindly bring them on before we come to the close of this session on confronting your fears and keeping track of your pursuit amidst the challenging circumstances. Okay, I am going to sound like some of those people that you know. That if you have a reason why these two should not get married, bring it now. And if you don't bring it now, then you have to, you know, that other statement that continues there. You have to hold your peace. So I would like to bring this to the close. I want to thank you very much, Charity, for sharing with us. This has been very precious. Right now, we are going through a moment that is quite, that is very global, that is quite challenging for many different people. And there are very many stories that are going on about the uncertainty of the coming time after the coronavirus season. And it made me to remember one of the things I've been sharing with many different leaders in different companies, organizations, businesses, faith entities, and so on and so forth, concerning the concept of the VUCA world, that we are living in a VUCA world. VUCA, V for volatility, U for uncertainty, C for complexity, and A for ambiguity, that we are in a VUCA world right now. I think we have never had a time that brought out, let me call it the VUCalism of this world, like this time when we are facing this global pandemic. And I think it's going to take leaders who are able to adapt, people who are able to reinvent themselves, people who are able to step on their fears, confront their fears, and move forward for us to get out of the ditch that we are in, but also to be able to have a happy, joyful time even after this pandemic. So indeed, we are going to take an informed risk. We are going to reconnect with our strong reason. We are going to count how much it will cost. And we will have to know that fear is not an invitation to stop, but an invitation to be more courageous and move on. Thank you for attending this session. Thank you, Charity. Thank you, everybody. And this marks the end of our session. See you soon again. Samuel Bakutana, signing out.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, and keep safe.
Thank you. Stay at home.
Bye.
Yes.